Okay, third time lucky, perhaps. Connection failed us once again. This time it was David, whose line kept disconnecting. Really hope that everything is all right now. Okay, let's see.
How we doing, B? We're
I
pretty consistent. We had our technical problems last week, and the whole thing just said the show had ended and threw me out.
Yeah, it's stuff that can happen. Obviously, it's Instagram failing us, but we are stronger than that, so we can resume our discussion, hopefully, without being
Yeah,
interrupted.
definitely.
Yeah,
We
it
were just saying how the timing's really good for McLaren because they've obviously had really sad news today. We've heard that
yeah,
there's probably going to be up to 70 people from the F1 side of things are sadly going to be made redundant. They've had the 300 million application rejected when they went to the government to try and look for a loan because they said they had to look for more avenues of funding. The stockholders are furious with them putting the historical cars up for the auction block, as it were. So they need to get back racing.
yeah. Everyone needs to get back racing because obviously financial struggles are going to take a toll on all F1 teams. But today's news regarding McLaren laying off 1,200 people from the applied technologies department, and it's even affecting F1 is going to be absolutely telling regarding the effects and the consequences that this major crisis is going to have on F1. So the necessity, the number one priority at the moment is to get back racing, even to get that income flow going once again, because otherwise Liberty Media cannot go and pay for fees and repair any kind of financial damage forever. It's obviously a temporary situation, but still, luckily, we really hope to go racing in Austria, and then the British Grand Prix will eventually be confirmed if PM Boris Johnson is obviously going to provide this shortened exemption of quarantine to the staff in order to get the cargo plan going in time for the race. And so, yeah, the calendar is looking good despite all the other saddening news surrounding it. We have another team.
I think.
Yeah, we have another team.
I think
Yeah.
it's really important. Like reaction to just as I can today. There's a lot of mixed opinion over the whole Daniel Abt saga and his impersonation on sim racing. And it's a bigger picture than Audi is a motor industry. Audi is short of money. It cannot have their reputation changed in any way. And that's what people have to see as the bigger picture. I'm not at all surprised that they suspended him. And yeah, I don't think he'll race in Formula E for a few years at least.
Yeah, there must be some problems with the audio, David, because it keeps going on and off, and you sound rather metallic. But still, I can understand that you were talking about the Daniel Abt saga regarding the cheating scandal during this charity event. I somewhat understand and agree with you on the matter that Audi is worldwide important and famous brand, so it has a reputation to stay true to. But at the same time, I do agree with Jean-Eric Byrne. He tweeted earlier today that obviously Daniel Abt and all drivers who were involved in all sorts of cheating scandals in the easy sport racing cannot have such hard punishments in real life, because the purpose of sim racing is entertainment. So
I'm just trying to change with the audio. How's that? Does that do anything different?
way better, David. Yeah.
Marvelous. Yeah, it is racing. It is sim racing. We know that Van Dorn was furious because it affected him getting the win. But I think that, you know, we've always seen in motor racing from Crashgate with Nelson Piquet Jr. that it matters. Reputation, whether real life or whether in the sim world, it matters.
Yes, absolutely it does, because if you're going to have a driver in your team who has previously been involved in a scandal, that is obviously going to affect his future career moves and the media are always going to report that, and they're going to reiterate that for many, many years to come. So I kind of understand Audi's position, but still, I sort of regard sim racing as a B type of racing. I mean, people do all kinds of things. Even Santino Ferrucci and Simon Pagenaud with Lando Norris, remember what they did during the IndyCar race, virtual race we're speaking, and they didn't get any sort of real punishment. So what is up with that compared to hiring someone else to race for you in order to make you look good?
I think the big selling point for Formula E was the fact that they had all the races on the grid. And so it was trying to head against Formula One and say, you know, we are able to put all our races forward. We can do a really substantial championship. They already got the sponsorship from Mum Champagne, of course, who left Formula One. And so Formula E is the sport that's on the rise. And they thought, you know, this is our moment to get a large viewing figure. And it hasn't worked out that way. They've got scandal instead.
Yes, exactly that. That was a big issue for them. They were on the verge of putting up a very successful sort of event, also because Formula One has not been able somewhat to involve all of the drivers, and instead they have been inviting all sorts of celebrities from Lee Payne to Luis Fonsi from Despacito. So it was a rather heterogeneous kind of lineup, whereas Formula E was finally going to have it serious. And obviously, most importantly, those are promotional sorts of events because they cost zero money. So they majorly do it to get the name of the series flowing. And also it's a great opportunity for sponsors as well. So with that, with the sort of main purpose of racing being put aside, I still cannot fathom esport racing being regarded as seriously as real racing, because also the risk factor is not there.
I think his apology will be really important. He's doing an apology. Apparently, there's going to be a video of it. What he says will be crucial. You've got to look at the fact he finished in 15th place as his best previously. So, was it the pressure? These are sports athletes. It was the whole, I'm not performing like I should. And I think the pressure got to him. And if he goes down the mental health path, he might survive this.
Yes, he might. Yeah, obviously, I agree on the fact that his apology is going to be crucial also in determining his future and his suspension, because obviously he's now being suspended not only from Audi, but also from his Formula E activity and campaign. But still, with the sort of pressure, I still don't understand how a driver who has so much experience, who has done so well in track, who has proved every doubter wrong throughout his career, needs to do this. So it was probably about the pressure, because we know that many athletes during quarantine have stopped their workout sessions altogether. Like from tennis, we have Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, who are obviously saying that there is still a long way to go before we can resume any kind of events. So they are eventually taking their time before getting back to their training session and regimen. So it might be probably that. They still think that there is a long way to go. So they took this time to relax themselves and to unwind and detach completely from the athlete side. But still, if they need to be involved in this sort of events, he probably said, I'm going to hire someone else to make myself look good. So perhaps it was the pressure, perhaps it was that he sort of underestimated the whole esports challenge and still believed that this whole quarantine thing is going to last so much longer.
Well, we always get told that we can't compare eras. Now, obviously, Formula One, celebrating 70 years, starting in 1950, 1955, Mille Miglia, the recently Sterling Moss. That's not a characteristic attribute that, you know, he never crossed the line. And in those era of races, they didn't have that pressure and ever go beyond the line. So sport has definitely changed and not for the better.
Yeah, it has definitely changed also because uh, there is so much around it. We have the marketing side of it, which has basically invaded the whole sports aspect of Formula One. But still, we can see some similarities between the 50s, so the very beginning of Formula One, and these current times, because I would obviously like to point out that it was coming from World War II. So the entire world was distraught after this worldwide event that obviously was upsetting and disruptive for the whole society, for economy as well. And these coronavirus times are obviously going to make everybody revise the whole concept of sports, of entertainment. So we really need to, we can't compare eras in this regard, because obviously we have this coronavirus thing, which has revolutionized communication, which is still revolutionizing the whole type of behavior between one another. So we have social distancing coming in place in the paddock. So human relation and relationships are going to be affected as well. So I still think that the iconic 50s are going to be somewhat similar to the iconic 2020s. What do you think? Could you see this
Very interesting.
working?
Very interesting. Obviously, there's been the comparisons, like you said, made with the wartime efforts and what's happening with COVID-19. What's nice is we're seeing more togetherness, but I think it also comes back to Boris Johnson's role with Formula One, and by overstepping his reach, per se, the reaction of the other sports will be telling.
There's still some problems with the audio because I couldn't really catch everything you said. I heard you mention Boris Johnson, but still.
I'm not sure what that could be. It's coming through fine here.
Now it is. I believe it's lagging at some point. I don't know, really.
So, is it clear?
Yeah, now yeah.
Okay. It could be the time delay, like you say. Basically, I was saying Boris Johnson got involved with Formula One, the other sports which are not running, and you've got League One football teams, League Two football teams, desperation of need. I think Formula One is going to make a lot of enemies because it's got a special exemption.
Yes. And that was the issue with giving the exemption to Formula One. How were the other football teams and other sporting federations going to react? Obviously, that is going to cause a huge problem. Also with MotorGP, I think MotorGP, with the whole calendar twist, they are obviously going to dispute a lot of races in Spain in order to, avoid this kind of quarantine issues, traveling from a country to another. But still, motorsport, yeah. I think it's the most feasible sort of sport that can resume right now, because other sports involve, physical contact. They involve much bigger sorts of people organizing them. So I think that Formula One, is going to have an awful lot of enemies, not only in the UK, but worldwide.
But that's the nice thing. If we think about the fact that what our sport does for the motoring industry, and that's what they've got to say. They've got to say, we are vital to society.
Yes, and they are, indeed.
So what's your thoughts on Renault? Renault say they're going to bankrupt.
Yeah, so Renault is going to close down 4 plants on May 29th. Actually, there is going to be a plan to save its destiny, which is going to be unveiled. So we can see that there are major cuts to be taken, not only in the Formula One team, but on Renault as an automotive giant in France. So obviously the French government owns 15% of the shares. So obviously that's obvious that they are going to get some help from the government. But still, is it enough to save the whole marque without having any major consequences of the F1 program? And that's where our major question lies today. is the F1 program going to survive from this plan, which they are going to elaborate in order to save the whole mark? Is it?
You have to feel sorry. You have to feel sorry for Esteban Ocon again.
Yeah, again. In case F1 is not going to be considered essential for Renault, where is it going to go? Obviously, they are out with one driver because Daniel Ricciardo signed with McLaren, so he's obviously out after 2020. But what is going to happen to Esteban Ocon? Is he going to go back to the Mercedes program and is going to pull a George Russell eventually?
So who's going to partner him?
Oh, well, he's going to... I personally think that in case he's going back to Mercedes, in case there is no room for him on the grid, he's going to go back to the junior program, so to a testing role, and then eventually he's going to make it to a seat.
It's interesting. We know Bottas, his manager, has talked to Renault and talked to Red Bull. Where would you prefer to see Bottas? Stay with Mercedes or move on?
As for Mercedes, everything depends on the feasibility of the Vettel deal, because obviously many people have been linking Vettel to Mercedes. Also, Bernie Ecclestone has been very vocal on this. He supports a glorious lineup featuring Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. The two are going to be a massive PR move because obviously there are two world champions who are going to coexist, or eventually they're going to be like Hamilton and Rosberg a few years ago. So it will be interesting to see how this pairing pans out. And then
how's my camera? How's my camera be? Diego put a message in about the camera.
You have to go a bit up because I can see your mouth, but we can't see your right. Now it's okay, because it kept switching and swinging from your nose to your eyes, and then we couldn't see anything. Okay, now
you're my eyes, B. You're my eyes, because I've got a lovely view where I am.
Right, now it's perfect. So if you just keep it this way, it's going to work fine. Yeah, I saw that Diego.
Perfect.
Yes, I saw that Diego is watching us, so obviously he's going to be very precise on this. So
absolutely, quite right.
Now he says yes in English, so everything is... Thank you, Diego. Yeah. No, I kind of got lost because I was talking about this hypothetical lineup between Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, which is going to be supported by Bernie Ecclestone himself. So in case this happens, I would love to see Bottas actually going out from Mercedes and trying to become sort of the backbone of a team. So I would rather see him at Renault rather than Red Bull, because if he was to go to Red Bull, what would be Verstappen's reaction? And everything would actually take a toll on the whole junior program of Red Bull, because what is going to happen to Albon, what is going to happen to Gasly, Kvyat, and these drivers who are looking to be moved up to the top team, because eventually it has a B team, it has a junior program. So Red Bull drivers are going to be paired up with Red Bull drivers. So he's going to upset the whole thing.
So I think the thing there is to say, if Bottas goes, is he going to join Renault as a #1 driver, or is it going to be a battle with Ocon?
I think he's going to join it as a #1 driver because of its top team experience.
My very good friend Janine, who's joined us all the way from America, has said that I've lost my forehead.
Now I can see your forehead. So if you just keep it this way, it's fine. But still, don't move your camera too much. Now we can see you.
I should.
Yeah. No. Now we are losing your forehead.
I should take a photo of my view. My whole body is in the camera, so I have no idea.
Really? No. I can see this part now, so it's fine.
Okay. So yeah, we were just saying Ocon, or is it going to be Ocon as #1, or is it going to be Bottas?
I said Bottas because of its experience in a top team. So I think that due to age matters, the team is eventually going to favor him. Although sometimes we may see them battle it out on track without any team orders. That's how I see it.
I hope that. I do hope that. But if you're Ocon, I think you're going to want to be the one who, when you've got the youth being favoured for Leclerc, and youth being favoured for Russell, Ocon should put his marker down and say, invest in me?
I think that the comparison with Leclerc is a bit, it's not the same case, because obviously Leclerc proved himself first on track throughout the first part of the season at Ferrari, and then eventually the team kind of chose to lean towards him.
Okay, I'll give you that. What about Russell then?
Well, Russell was lucky enough to be in a team that struggled pretty much with next to a very experienced driver, so it wasn't really telling the way he performed, although in qualifying he was pretty much flawless against Kubica. But still, it's not about priorities, because every time they were racing against each other, and sometimes, you know, Kubica was winning, he even got a point. So it wasn't really telling and revealing in terms of real potential this season. So I would say that with the youngsters, there were different patterns within the different teams. So with Ferrari, I wouldn't say it's comparable to a potential Renault scenario with Ocon and Bottas.
Okay, I'll give you that one as well. So our final point to discuss then, final point on our agenda is Aston Martin. The money that's gone to that, and the Mercedes CEO has headed across too in August.
Yeah, so we were previously talking about Toto Wolff potentially joining Aston Martin. We still have somebody from the Mercedes executive team, but that's Moer, so that's a different member. But still, we are going to see how close the link with Mercedes is going to be. Obviously, they're going to be powered by Mercedes, and this opens up a very interesting range of scenarios regarding even potential driver choices for the future. Well, how do you see this?
I think it's definitely going to be what we said. Wolff's investment, Mercedes blueprint, Aston Martin's gone from the gentleman car. In 5 years, it'll be back to being a sports car.
Yes, and I would like to make another comparison this time. So we were obviously talking about the 50s in Formula One. Mercedes chose to withdraw from motorsport competitions after the 1955 Le Mans disaster, where over 180 people were injured, 84 people were killed. That was a very dramatic event, which actually put an abrupt end to their development. They started being trailblazers back then in the sport technology-wise, and then they withdrew. Now that they are starting over again, perhaps investing in a whole new team, they may be starting from scratch once again, because they're obviously going to, we said in the previous episode, they are going eventually to retire in order to preserve the Mercedes name, but still they are going to be there as Mercedes, but with the Aston Martin name. So are they going to start from scratch, and they are picking up from where they left off in terms of innovations, in terms of investments?
I think it's really telling. Tragedy leads to change. Said they left in 1955. Van Wall in 1959 after all the loss of life in the 1958 season. It is sad. It always takes tragedy to get a big change or impetus into something. So Mercedes, with the power horse that they are and the visionary that the CEO had, I think they'll be a superpower in 10 years, if I'm honest.
Yes, absolutely. We've always praised Lawrence Stroll's vision, because he's obviously never been short-sighted in terms of investments. He's one of the most brilliant salesmen, investors, managers, businessmen in the industry. So he obviously saw everything through it with a long-term perspective, and that's very admirable from my point of view, because obviously having such vision and preparing such a huge investment for the future is really determining the sort of the sport, even in 10 years' time. So that's brilliant.
No, definitely. The future is bright, but we need to get racing. We just need to get racing.
Absolutely. We do need to get racing, because obviously, as we mentioned before, even in the lives that eventually got cut out before we experienced connection problems, we said that there is so much money that needs to get back flowing from races, from the single income for the teams. Otherwise, they're obviously going to be put in a difficult situation with their staff, just like McLaren is going to lay off over 1,000 people. This is going to be a very tragic scenario in case we don't go back to racing, because obviously Liberty Media has been helping out many teams. They have started paying them already, because we haven't raced since last year pretty much. We just have done physically testing, and then everything stopped. So still the income stopped to flow, and in case we don't go back to racing, this is going to be a major crisis, which is going to affect the whole department of each team.
Well, something jolly. We've got Venezuela. We've got Aniel F1, who's joining us from Venezuela. So saludos to you, Aniel.
Yeah, absolutely. We are obviously very happy about the people that are joining us. Don't forget to send in any questions if you have any, because last time I remember there were some people like James and Carlo from our group who were interacting with us concerning Renault's future and Mercedes' future as well. And in the meantime, we lost your eyes and forehead once again, David. Yeah, now we can see you again. Yeah, okay, perfect.
So all you can see is the top of my head?
No, I can see just the bottom, because I could see this part, and now I can see you again in a normal way, if we could say so.
Lovely. Oh, yeah. There you go.
This is stuff that can happen during, obviously, our lives.
We admire the perseverance of all of our viewers. And for our second podcast, we're certainly working through the glitches, but it's been an absolute pleasure conversing with you again, Dee.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to have more topics to discuss next week as we get closer to racing. We really hope to have a lot of news, obviously pleasant news coming in. And obviously, once again, this live will be available on our Instagram TV and on our Instagram feed once it's done. It's been a pleasure for myself as well. I really hope all of you enjoyed it. Yes,
guaranteed to put a smile on people's faces at this time. You get to play the game of spotting David's head.
Yeah, and now I can't really spot it because I can see your mouth again. And just that, okay? No, you need to get something to put your phone on, and then otherwise your webcam.
I'm gonna take a screenshot, and you'll see what my vision is, and you'll be like, I've no idea why live changes it, because it's baffling.
Yeah, because you're obviously going to see it in the live, what it's going to look like with your face, and then it's completely different on your phone. Yeah. Well, it's stuff that can happen. Obviously, we are doing it in a amateur way, just like Fernando Alonso said in a team radio, racing like that, like amateurs. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really hope that you will enjoy it. And obviously next week we are going to celebrate Formula One with its 70th birthday. And next time we're going to talk about the 60, as this time we mentioned some bits about the 50s, right?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, B. Well done to everyone. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Bye, everyone. And thank you for watching.